Suge gave me a studio, and gave me an engineer in Hollywood.
Big U has always made no secret of his close bond with Suge Knight. Big U was connected to the attack on Suge Tupac on September 7, 1996, which resulted in Tupac's death, according to shocking new evidence in his case.
I remember when the officer came and told me, he said, your homeboys killed Tupac.
What was Big U's responsibility, and how did he manage to hide it for so long? Wait until I reveal everything. The latest information regarding the murder inquiry, based on what is known with fair confidence about that fatal night in Vegas, Arkansas. Attending the MGM Grand Prix heavyweight boxing match between Mike Tyson and Bruce Seldon's surveillance film showed Tupac Shakur and his group, which included Death Row Records CEO Suge Knight, touching Orlando Baby Lane Anderson in the hotel lobby. This assault was purportedly retaliation for a previous instance in which Anderson, a well-known Southside Compton, attempted to take Trayvon Trey Lane, a death row accomplice, off his death row chain at a Foot Locker shop in Lakewood, California. Around 11:15 p.m. that evening, Tupac was riding shotgun in a black BMW 750 vehicle that Suge Knight was driving. They were traveling in a convoy to Club 662, which is controlled by Knight and is connected to Death Row, at the crossroads of Cova Lane and East Flamingo Road, close to the Vegas Strip. A white Cadillac came up alongside the BMW as it was stopped at a red light. A shooter fired about 12 to 14 shots from a .40 caliber Glock from the backseat of the Cat. Tupac was shot 4 times, once in the leg, once in the arm, and twice in the chest. His right lung was punctured by 1 bullet, resulting in severe internal bleeding. According to reports, Hugh Knight was slightly hurt when a bullet or piece of glass struck the dome. Knight was able to drive a short distance and make a U-turn over a traffic median before the paramedics and police arrived, being taken to the University Medical Center of Southern Nevada for emergency surgery. Tupac lost his fight 6 days later on September 13, 1996. Investigations encountered significant obstacles in the immediate aftermath of the shooting. Many witnesses were not making an effort to assist police while adhering to the street's no-snitching policy. Even though Knight was an eyewitness, he didn't give investigators much helpful information. According to a journalist, Knight famously said, "I don't get paid to solve homicides." When questioned about his assistance with authorities, the case was officially unresolved for years, despite being largely regarded as the main suspect. Orlando Anderson denied any involvement until May 29, 1998, when he was killed in a gang-related shooting in Compton. It appeared that the truth would never be revealed after Anderson's passing. But Dwayne Keith D. Davis's rise to fame marked a significant turning point. Orlando Anderson's uncle, a former leader of the Southside Compton Crips, Compton street legend Davis revealed his involvement in Tupac's murder in a number of interviews, confessions, and finally his 2019 memoir. In 2008 and 2009, when speaking with police under proffer agreements that provided limited immunity, Davis said that he was in the white Cadillac when the incident occurred. He stated that Orlando Anderson and DeAndre Freaky Smith were in the back seat. Terrence Bubble Up Brown was driving, and he was riding shotgun. Davis claims that he handed a Glock to the people in the back seat, from which the lethal bullets were fired.
Came from the back. Big Dre, Orlando.
Who shot Tupac?
For the code of the streets.
According to Davis's memoir and subsequent interviews, the shooting was retaliation for the MGM Grand beatdown. He claimed that the attack on Anderson provided us with the final approval to take action against Tupac and Knight. Davis insisted repeatedly that the disrespect exhibited to his nephew was the catalyst for the gang-motivated shooting. Davis was detained and accused of murder with a deadly weapon and gang enhancement on September 29, 2023, despite not actually firing his weapon. Prosecutors said he was the shot caller who planned the assault. Therefore, why are there still rumors linking Big U to Tupac's murder? The rumor about Big U's purported involvement mostly originates from his prominence in Los Angeles in the 1990s. In the Roland 60s neighborhood, Crips Big U was a shot caller who had a lot of influence in gang circles. According to some ideas, he might have been aware of or even able to influence the activities of other Crip groups, such as the Southside Compton Crips that killed Tupac because of his position. But it's important to understand that the Southside Compton Crips and the Roland 60s are two distinct groups with their own areas and leadership systems. The idea that Big U would be in charge of Southside Crips activities oversimplifies how intricate and dispersed Los Angeles gang groups are. According to a gang structure expert, Crip sets are acting independently. And significant acts like a celebrity murder would necessitate a great deal of cooperation, which is not the case here. Another rumor connects Sean Diddy Combs and Bad Boy Records to Big U, according to Keith D's revelations. Combs offered $1 million to assassinate Tupac and Suge Knight in order to ease tensions between Death Row Records and Bad Boy Records. If accurate, this claim would point to a link between Tupac's death and the East Coast, given Big U's affiliation and purported ties to the music industry. Some conspiracy theories have tried to cast him as a possible go-between in such a scheme. Several important points come to light when analyzing the reliable evidence surrounding Tupac's murder. First, the most supported theory, supported by Katie's confessions and subsequent arrest, suggests that Tupac and his group were the target of a simple gang retaliation by the Southside Compton Crips for beating Orlando Anderson. This theory is consistent with security footage, witness accounts, and the larger background of gang conflicts in Los Angeles in the 1990s. Second, Big U is close to the incidents and participants in Tupac's death because of his position in the Crips and his ties to the music business. Investigation into Suge Knight's possible involvement in Tupac's murder has been more intensive and ongoing than the conjecture around Big U. Knight has been the target of multiple accusations of court mage, of court sissets, and we all know we ever see. And we all know I've been exploring that. And we all know I've been exploring that path. And my Knight's possible involvement in Tepicades, a love, ever was, my remive. I call like MOQ Knights, with my net, we sound with court season. We call with court get we call with court sequat sick sakide with court cat at kilego with court get to some get I get you kiss I like you to sick it or with you to sick and we you could kiss a queer kick you could get it to fried you could with but you could to tie with kadiki will you do the faf I you could right fine we and we to check again it you can get out how we he's this with the kitty. Complicity over the years, even though he was in the car with Tupac during the murder and was shot himself.
I think Suge Knight wanted it to look that way.
Former LAPD detective Russell Poole first put up one well-known notion, which was mentioned in Nick Broomfield's 2002 documentary. Tupac and Biggie claimed that Knight planned Tupac's assassination in order to keep him from leaving Death Row Records. Rumors of financial issues between Knight and Tupac, such as claims that Knight had embezzled a $700,000 check meant for Tupac from the movie Gridlock and that Tupac was preparing to launch his own label, gave rise to this notion. More credible criticisms of Knight center on his part in establishing the circumstances that led to the murder rather than his direct planning of it. The hazardous atmosphere surrounding Tupac was probably exacerbated by Knight's complete absorption in gang culture, his inability to put an end to the beef AR during the MGM Grand altercation, and his overall handling of professional and personal disputes. Numerous issues have hindered the Tupac murder investigation, such as witness intimidation, the gang members' street code of silence, and the passing of important individuals like Orlando Anderson. At first, Vegas police had a difficult time obtaining testimony and evidence. Journalist Kathy Scott was informed by Chief Investigator Kevin Manning that the case would never be resolved because of recalcitrant witnesses and a dearth of fresh leads. Bob Ladd, a former Compton police officer who helped with the inquiry, pointed out cultural differences that hindered first attempts. He mentioned how Compton gang members were laughed out of interrogations because of cultural misunderstandings, and how Vegas detectives were equipped to deal with them. This revelation implies that despite having possible leads, authorities found it difficult to handle the intricate social dynamics at play. Greg Kading, a former LAPD investigator who spoke with Keefe D in 2009 as part of a narcotics case to obtain leverage in the Biggie Smalls murder investigation, was primarily responsible for the case's breakthrough. Although the appropriate agreement initially restricted the use of Davis statements during these interviews. Kading's investigation, which is detailed in his 2011 book, Murder Rap, came to the conclusion that Tupac's murder was a straightforward gang retaliation planned by Keefe D and executed by the Southside Compton Crips. Crucially, Kading's thorough investigation of the case did not point to Big U or imply a larger conspiracy, including anyone the direct shooters. Despite the prior plea deal, DeVos's public remarks in 2018, including his biography and appearances in documentaries, gave law enforcement further justification to press charges. In order to revive the investigation, Vegas police, under the command of Lieutenant Jason Johansson, pointed to Davis's own admissions. When authorities raided Davis's Henderson, Nevada house on July 17, 2023, they found laptops, .40 caliber ammunition, and a copy of Compton Street Legend. Prosecutors say that Davis was the on-site commander who gave the order for Shakur's killing after this search finally resulted in his arrest on September 29, 2023. Big U has moved away from his criminal background in recent years, concentrating on community service and mentoring young people through his evolving options. Nonprofit, however, a lot of people are still dubious and see his gang past as enough to be suspicious. Let's examine these male gamers in greater detail. We must first comprehend who Big U, Suge Knight, and Tupac were in the 90s LA scene before we can truly dissect their relationships. In a world where your set dictated everything, including where you could walk and who you could talk to, Big U was holding it down as a respected Rollin' 60s artist. At the same time, Suge Knight was exploding as the co-founder and CEO of Death Row Records, a label that was completely transforming West Coast hip-hop with artists like Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, and eventually Tupac Shakur. The important thing to keep in mind is that Knight was known to be riding with the mob Peru Bloods, which naturally led to animosity with associated ballers like Big U because of the gang's long-standing rivalry. Due to the Bloods and Crips' long-standing animosity, Knight and Big U were inevitably on opposing sides of the gang split. This basic animosity serves as the backdrop for any purported relationship between the two men. If there had been a link between Big U and Suge Knight, it would have been extremely complex or managed by impartial industry parties. A natural division brought about by their rival gang affiliations, Big U with the Rollin' 60s, Crips, and Knight with the mob Peru Bloods would have made direct cooperation hard. According to one source, Knight's prominence at Death Row allowed him to contact a variety of Los Angeles music industry people, including individuals with connections, particularly when commercial interests were involved. Because of their ties to the music industry, their storylines begin to intersect more directly, which may have been made possible by this business-first mindset. As a manager and promoter, Big U was getting his hands filthy in the business. Notably, he collaborated with musicians like Death Row associate Curupt before starting his own businesses. Like Unique Music, because of his influence in the 90s, he was associated with Death Row's activities. No receipts, nevertheless, demonstrate that he worked closely with Knight or Death Row to fully comprehend Big U's come up. See what he had to say about his transition from hood figure to music executive. In a 2022 interview with Big Boy's Neighborhood Radio Show,
Jimmy Chris, my Peru partner out of Compton, he came to me and he had an idea to do a show on management and a documentary on management. And I was at the time time I really wasn't doing it. I was just doing football.
He described how he progressed from overseeing only one employee to investing in the concept of launching a show that eventually became well known.
We went over it a couple times, then we decided to do it, but I wanted to do something that would be telling from our side, the point of view. And it ended up morphing into what you see now, talking about the lives of people who are behind hip-hop and the people who make hip-hop.
This analysis of Big U's strategy for the music game demonstrates his comprehension of the covert power struggles that molded careers and impacted the development of hip-hop in the 1990s. It also demonstrates his ties to Peruvians, demonstrating that even in the face of gang conflicts, commercial partnerships could overcome these barriers when paper was involved. The rivalry between the East and West Coasts offers vital background information for comprehending the tensions that would ultimately explode in violence. Personal slights might easily turn into fatal altercations because of the well-known rivalry between West Coast Death Row Records hip-hop groups and East Coast Bad Boy Records. Led by Sean Diddy Combs, this feud was commonly blamed for Tupac's murder and the subsequent murder of the infamous Taquin. And we all know I've been exploring the infamous Biggie Smalls in March 1997 while gang-related factors have also been mentioned. When Suge Knight secured Tupac's allegiance by posting his $1.4 million bail in 1995 in exchange for signing with Death Row. His firm hold over Death Row Records and its musicians was no joke. Knight established the label as the leading hip-hop label on the West Coast. Under his direction, Death Row evolved into a cultural movement with strong ties to gang connections and street cred in addition to being a record company. Big U was a Rollin' 60s member and Knight was a well-known member of the Piru Bloods mob. However, because Compton's gang and music scenes were interconnected, they operated in circles that overlapped. For instance, Death Row Records employed members of both Bloods and Crips, resulting in intricate alliances and tensions that ultimately contributed to the violence surrounding Tupac's death. According to some accounts, Knight and Big U were connected through mutual associates. Death Row musician Corrupt was purportedly managed by Henley, putting him in the label's wider network. According to some accounts, Corrupt also introduced Henley to Suge Knight, who gave him financial support after being released from prison. And Henley once allegedly bailed Knight out of jail. However, there is no reliable evidence to support these statements. Therefore, they should be regarded with caution. Notwithstanding these possible links, any intimate or trustworthy relationship between Knight and Big U would have been severely hampered by the basic gang rivalry between the Bloods and Crips. The tale of Tupac signing to Death Row Records exemplifies the intricate relationship between street politics, business, and devotion that characterized the time. Tupac's bail was posted by the Air Knight after releasing the iconic double album All Eyes on Me in 1996. The rapper rose to prominence as the label's main talent. Death Row benefited financially from this collaboration, but Tupac would also be thrust into a risky feud in the music business and on the streets. Tensions with Bad Boy Records and its artists, especially the infamous Big and Sean Diddy Combs, sharply increased as Tupac's fame grew. Tupac's vicious diss song Hit 'Em Up took what could have remained a professional rivalry and turned it into a highly personal and potentially violent situation. It's still unclear exactly where Big U fits into this network of connections at this time. Although he might have been inherently opposed to the blood-related Death Row because of his membership, the truth was probably more complex. Gang ties didn't always determine business relationships in the intricate web of Los Angeles in the 1990s. Individuals like Big U functioned in a variety of circles of influence, but it's undeniable that disaster was in the making by September 1996 when Tupac and his group ran into Orlando. Simmering gang tensions, personal grievances, and the growing East-West rivalry had produced a powder keg of potential violence. On September 7, 1996, baby Lane Anderson, a member of the Southside Compton Crips, saw Mike Tyson fight at the MGM Grand Arkansas. The altercation that followed would start a series of events that would alter hip-hop's landscape forever. Anderson's attack, which was captured on hotel security and seen by several onlookers, was purportedly retaliation for an earlier incident in which Anderson attempted to steal a death row medallion from Trayvon Trey Lane, a member of a Peruvian mob. Tupac and his blood-affiliated group violated the street code by attacking a member, and the street justice of the moment ordered a reaction. Hours later, a white Cadillac drove up beside Tupac and Suge Knight as they were driving a black BMW down the Vegas Strip at a red light. Several shots were fired from that car, hitting Tupac 4 times during the night of grazing. Tupac would pass away from his wounds. 6 days later, on September 13, 1996, he passed away, leaving behind a legacy of extraordinary artistic accomplishment and unresolved doubts regarding the circumstances surrounding his passing. Numerous ideas about who was at fault and why would surface in the wake of this tragedy. Even though there isn't any hard proof linking Big U to the events of that night, accusations of his involvement would eventually surface among these theories. In order to comprehend why these rumors continue and what reliable information there is about Big U's possible involvement in Tupac's murder, we must look at other accounts, investigations, and claims that have surfaced over the years. The murders. Aftermath following Tupac Shakur's murder. Big U and Suge Knight's lives took unexpected turns due to court cases, personal changes, and their continued ties to the intricate relationship between gang culture and the music business. The aftermath of Tupac's murder signaled the start of Suge Knight's protracted decline. Once the dominant force in West Coast hip-hop, Death Row Records began to disintegrate as musicians left and legal problems mounted. Knight's aggressive commercial strategies and purported criminal ties, which had previously appeared to contribute to his success, turned into liabilities. Less than 6 months after Tupac's passing, in March 1997, the infamous Big was killed in Los Angeles, adding to the tension on Death Row and Knight. According to some claims, Knight hired Mob Peru member Wardell Pucci F.A. to execute the hit and plan Biggie's assassination as payback for Tupac's passing. Although Knight was never charged as a result of these accusations, they did add to his already contentious reputation. Knight's legal issues kept getting worse. He was released in 2001 after serving 9 years in jail for breaking probation in a 1995 assault case in 1997. Throughout the 2000s, he was charged with other crimes and served brief jail sentences. In 2015, he faced his most significant legal obstacle when he was accused of murder in connection with a hit-and-run that killed Carrie Carter and injured C.L. Bone Sloan on the set of the movie Straight Outta Compton. Knight entered a no contest plea to voluntary manslaughter in the case in 2018 and received a 28-year jail sentence. He is serving this bid at the moment and won't be eligible for parole until October 2034. Knight has continuously denied any participation in the killings of Tupac and Biggie during these court cases. Knight stated in a 2023 interview that followed Keefe D's arrest that he would not testify against Keefe D, implying that the shooter isn't who the police believe him to be, but he did support justice in Tupac's case. This enigmatic statement raised concerns about what Knight might know that he hasn't disclosed to investigators and added to the case's already intricate story. Big U took a different course in the decades after Tupac's murder, spending 13 years behind bars for trying to steal 33 pounds of cocaine. Big U became well known in the music industry and as a community activist in the early 2000s. He started developing Options, a nonprofit organization that aims to lessen gang violence among young people in South Los Angeles, and handled a number of musicians, including Corrupt and Nipsey Hussle. Big U has portrayed himself in interviews as someone who has overcome his criminal background to become a force for good in his society. When he appeared on Big Boy's Neighborhood, he talked about how he has changed and his desire to support other children.
That's what motivates me right now today, to do the things that I'm doing with these kids to help improve the lifestyle.
A recurring motif in Big U's public discourse has been this story of redemption and change. Persona in stark contrast to his prior reputation as a gang boss. He gained the respect of local authorities and became known as a force for good in South Los Angeles thanks to his community service. However, in March 2025, Big U's arrest as a result of Operation Drawdown. A federal probe aimed at the Roland 60s neighborhood Crips called into question this meticulously crafted image. He faced several allegations, including fraud, extortion, murder, and racketeering. Prosecutors claimed that he ran a criminal organization akin to the mafia while posing as a community leader who had changed. Big U was charged in a 43-count indictment with planning the 2021 murder of rising rapper Ryan Williams, using his position to blackmail athletes and celebrities involved in human trafficking, and defrauding his own foundation. Creating alternatives. These grave accusations called into question the authenticity of his public change and the degree to which he had actually moved past his criminal background. Big U uploaded videos refuting the accusations of racial profiling and implying that the charges were an effort to damage his reputation prior to turning himself in.
I never mixed that with nothing. I didn't manipulate nobody. I didn't steal nothing. Like, y'all don't understand what the FBI do to black men who try to help their community. I ain't been nothing but a help to our community. But I guess it is what it is. This the price of being.
Big U entered a not guilty plea to all allegations in the 43-count indictment on April 8, 2025, in a courthouse in downtown Los Angeles. Stark contrast to the prosecution's portrayal of him as a deadly criminal mastermind. His lawyer Arturo Hernandez Melendez presented him as a calm community figure with a lean life behind him. Prosecutors refused to grant Big U bail, arguing that he posed a risk to possible witnesses. According to reports, anonymous victims were afraid to testify if Henley was freed. Big U might spend the rest of his life in prison if found guilty on all counts in this continuing case. Big U's previous relationships and activities, especially the ongoing suspicions that he was responsible for Tupac's murder, have come back into focus as a result of his recent legal issues. Beyond Knight and Big U's individual destinies, hip-hop culture and the ongoing inquiry into Tupac's killing were significantly impacted by the murder's aftermath. The case was officially unresolved for decades, which allowed conspiracy theories to thrive and unrestrained conjecture about possible offenders to proliferate. One of the most widely accepted alternate theories alleges that Sean Diddy Combs used paid colleagues to plan Tupac's murder. Keefe D's assertions in police interviews, and his memoir helped spread this story. According to Davis, during the conflict between Death Row Records and Bad Boy Records, Combs offered $1 million to assassinate Tupac or Knight. According to Davis' memoir, he met Combs at Greenblatt's Deli in Hollywood, where Combs allegedly questioned if Tupac's killing was caused by the Southside Crips. Davis reportedly said yes. Davis also said that Combs's heroin dealer, Eric Zip Martin, was supposed to pay the agreed-upon amount but instead disappeared after the murder. Law enforcement officials have repeatedly declared that Diddy is not a suspect in Tupac's murder, and that Combs has not been charged as a result of these accusations. Combs has strongly denied being involved. Given Davis's possible reasons for involving a well-known person, the absence of supporting evidence beyond his assertions calls into question their veracity. After a protracted investigation, Key D was accused of Tupac's murder in 2023, leading to an arrest. This happened after years of Davis's public admissions, which included his 2019 biography and appearances in documentaries such as Unsolved and Death Row Chronicles. Prosecutors contend that Davis's own words, which form the main basis of the case against him, show that he was responsible for planning the shooting. Clark County District Attorney Steve Wilson stressed when he announced the indictment that Davis might face murder charges under Nevada law. even if he did not draw the trigger because of his role in orchestrating and enabling the attack. After several delays, Davis' trial, which was initially planned for June 2024, is now slated for February 9, 2026. New evidence presented by the defense. Like testimony indicating Davis was not in Las Vegas at the time of the shooting, has been blamed for these delays. Davis asserted his innocence in a jailhouse interview with ABC News in March 2025, saying, "I'm innocent. I haven't killed anybody. Never did ever kill anybody." He claimed to be in Los Angeles with witnesses to support his alibi and denied ever being in Las Vegas on September 7, 1996, this abrupt change in Davis's story that goes against his years of open admissions. It's made an already complicated case much more complicated. According to hotel records presented to prosecutors, Davis was in Las Vegas on the night of the murder. When rooms were reserved at the Monte Carlo Resort in his wife's name and at the Excalibur Hotel in Anderson's identity. The continuing court case against Davis is the biggest advancement in the Tupac murder investigation in almost 30 years. And it may provide some closure to one of the most persistent mysteries in hip-hop. However, due to the case's intricacy, time, and the passing of important witnesses and suspects, some questions may never be fully addressed. A critical evaluation of the evidence suggests that the Southside Compton Crips, in particular Keeve D and Orlando Anderson, were the main perpetrators of Tupac's murder, despite the numerous investigations, confessions, and hypotheses surrounding the crime. The most credible reports state that the motivation was retaliation for the MGM Grand beating, which was a clear instance of gang violence rather than a convoluted business plan. This judgment is in line with the evaluations of investigators, such as Greg Kading, who, in his substantial work on the case, has continuously highlighted the gang retribution narrative. As the Tupac murder investigation moves forward and Big U deals with his own legal issues, new material might surface that changes how we perceive these incidents and the connections between these significant personalities. If you liked this video, click the one that's currently playing to watch more.